I'll be sending out a survey because I want you to be able to fill it out. Let us know how you like this workshop, what other kind of programming you'd like to see, what FIM could be doing to help you, and try and get more people involved. So I'm really excited. There's so many people that signed up and are involved in this workshop. So with that, I'm going to introduce Erica and Cameron with the Startup Collaborative, and they're going to talk about their organization and how they can help guide you through starting a startup business. So Cameron and Erica, I'll turn it over to you.
I think it's funny when Denise introduces herself because she sort of humbly leaves out all of her celebrity factors and all of these big awards she's gotten and stages she's been on. And I think if we had Heather introduce herself too, she'd probably leave all that out as well. Just they're so humble. But the leadership behind the Fashion Institute Midwest is really, we stand back and look at you all and say, holy cow, that thing that's a beast. Watch out, because you guys are such a strong team. So we are very grateful to be in your company and to get to work with you guys today. I'm Erica Wassinger. I'm one of the leads over at the Startup Collaborative. I've worked with FIM for several years, on and off, usefully and unusefully, I'm sure over the last, I think it's been 5 or 6 years now. And I love this stuff. I love the companies that you all build. I love how you guys approach creative solving and business development. I think it's really interesting to me. I sit a little bit more in the stodgier space of business. So getting to work with them is easily one of the highlights of mine every year. And then I get to work with Cameron every day, which is, well, I'm not going to tell you how good it is because you'll try and take him away, but it's nice. It's very nice.
Thank you, Erica. Hello, everyone. Cameron French here, Program Manager at the Startup Collaborative. My background is unique in a way that I never thought I would find myself working in kind of the tech startup or venture capital spaces, but I think that's kind of the thing that gives me a really interesting into these industries is because I don't come with any of those biases or expectations, which when I heard about this opportunity from the team at Fashion Institute Midwest and when Heather Hooten kind of connected us and we had a conversation with Denise, it was like, this is amazing. And as you all know, Omaha is one of those really cool areas in our nation where there's all these pocket kind of neighborhoods and areas that are creating things that most people don't necessarily hear about, but there's this hunger and drive and this kind of this eagerness to set a discourse for what's expected, especially in the Midwest. And so when I heard about this opportunity for us to present to all of you for, you know, kind of the early stages or kind of building out the foundation for what a startup, either in fashion or in a variety of industries could be, we kind of, you know, jumped at the opportunity. So it's kind of my job at the Startup Collaborative to have these early conversations with people who are hopping off their couch and they kind of had that light bulb idea and they say, I kind of think there's something here, but I don't know what to do with it. You know, what are my first steps? Do I build a website or do I look for funding? And so what we really like to do and be really keen about is we take some steps backward and really just try to hone in on what are the problems that you're trying to solve, but not only that, but what are those customers that you're trying to reach? What are they raising their hands and saying, this is what's most important to me. And so we try to focus on that lens first. And so we'll dive into a little bit more about what those first steps are. Just a little bit of a reminder for Zoom etiquette, as some people are calling it. We'll obviously try to open up a little bit later on into the call to have an open Q&A and some discussions. But for now, just make sure that your cameras are muted. We would love to have your videos on, just because it's easier to see faces and interact. If that's not possible, that's totally fine. Don't feel like you need to have the camera on at all times either, but let's make sure that those microphones are muted. And then when you have those questions that come to mind about what we're discussing, feel free to drop those into the chat. Both Denise and Erica and myself as well will be keeping an eye on that chat to see what those questions are. And then we'll find ways to integrate them into the conversations that we're having. So I guess with that, Denise, Erica, where do you think would be a really cool place to start with some of these conversations?
I want to get to know everyone that's on this call. And I mentioned a little bit ago, you know, we're going to start talking about the foundations of each of your business plans, about what you want this business to grow into. And there is a level of sort of rapport and trust. So you are working amongst, I don't know how many, 4, 8, 12, 16, about 18 potential strangers. Everyone in this room, can we all agree that we are supportive and here to build each other as well as our own business? If we are, you can use that reaction. There's like I love these little like thumbs up, high fives. You don't have to, that's cheesy. But we can agree to that. And if we can also agree that, you know, we want to kind of give it our all, and that we're ready to sort of dig into the hard stuff, because on the business side of the house, there's a lot of unknowns, and we want to help mitigate some of those unknowns for you. So we're going to actually lean in right away with our introductions. So we're going to kind of go around the robin, around the room here. Who are you? What do you really want this brand to become? And for fun, I want to know, what was your earliest inspiration in fashion? You know, Cameron describes his moment that he gets to spend with all the entrepreneurs, where it's lovingly, you know, the moment they jumped off the couch and said, like, I could build a company around that. How do I do that? I want to hear that moment for you all. As you think about that question about what you want your brand to become in 5 years, think about where that means your brand is. Is it global? Is it boutique? Is it runway? Is it direct to consumer? Think about what you want to make off of this. I know this is a dirty topic, but something you should know about me. Gallup says my #1 talent in entrepreneurship is profitability. And it's probably because I have run businesses into the ground before. I have been that dirt broke entrepreneur. So now I'm hyper focused on my margins, on the ability to make sustainable businesses, because it's a lot better when you're making money on a business. Your back is off the wall, your head is clearer, and you know what's going on. So think about that revenue, that goal for what would make this really kind of not just good for me, not just get by for me, but exciting for me. And then think about how many customers you're working with annually. What does that look like for you? Do you know them all? Do you not know them all? Have you built a community similar to what Glacier has done with their brand? What are you, those type of things. So there's no wrong answer in any of this. Literally, there's nothing wrong that you can choose in your vision for 5 years ahead. But knowing 5 years ahead where you want this company to be and what you want it to look like and feel like is kind of important as we get into what we'll do next. So who feels brave enough to start off with these introductions? Yes, Marianne, I like you so much already. Go for it. We're going to unmute you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Mariana. It's actually pronounced Mariana. It's a German pronunciation. Can't help it. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So I'm from New York. I live in Manhattan, and let's see, what are we giving? So my platform, my vision is to have fashion tees, like fashion tops, but I would like it to be more on the sustainability side, maybe more eco-friendly. Actually, definitely more eco-friendly, 100% sell through, definitely profitable. And when I say eco-friendly, I mean like organic dyes, organic printing, more hemp fabrics, things that will not wind up in a landfill, because I want more of like this artisan type of apparel. And early inspiration. So I originally was inspired in my teens. So that was back in the 80s, you know, being a designer, and I've been a designer in the garment industry for like 30 years, but I've been starting this little cottage industry of tops, selling to boutiques. So right now it's a little bit more pop-up and then some boutiques. It's very, very grassroots at the moment. So yeah, I would like to grow that. I need more education, more information on the structure, on like the bones of it, the basics, like regarding laws and taxes, and all of the boring stuff is the stuff that I do not really have a handle on. I got the creative, but I need the structural. because my
That's
goal
great.
is to be more boutique-y, maybe not
Okay.
necessarily a household name, but yeah.
Okay. That's a super helpful vision and
Yeah.
a noble one too. I like it. I feel like
Cool.
we can really sink our teeth into that one.
Cool.
Okay, who's ready to follow that strong lead? Yes. Hi, audio. It's Cameron's partner. Oh, tell Cameron hi.
Audio, where's your hair?
I cut my hair. It's gone. It's in a box in my studio. So it's around.
It looks great. Is it cool
Thanks.
and comfortable?
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, it looks great.
My name's Audio, and my brand is Audio Hellquake. And Erica and Cameron both know my partner, Cam, because he works in their office during normal times.
I really miss him, by the way.
I see him all the time. He's doing great.
Oh, man.
My pronouns are he, him, his. And I think the first time I actually got interested in fashion at all was when I was 16. I got a car and I got a license and I had birthday money. And it was the first time I felt like I could explore fashion in a way that made sense to me. Because it actually, I always say fashion felt like it wasn't for me at all. It felt like what girls did, and I just wasn't interested in it. So when I was 16 and I got my license, I went to the thrift store with my birthday money, and things got really weird and exciting really fast. And then I just love fashion from then on. It was really more of expression and a way to like explore instead of like being the right person. So that shift happened when I was 16, and I've been playing ever since. So my brand is Audio Hellquake. I mostly work with leather. I make leather accessories. I have a few other items in my shop too, but mostly that's what I'm known for. Right now, everything's made by hand by me in my basement. My 5-year plan would be, I'd like to still have it be very like a handmade shop. I'd love to be a little more like cult following, like people make sure they pay attention to when my releases are because I sell out. And as far as money goes, Erica, people say that money can buy happiness up until $75,000 a year. And after that, more money doesn't mean more happiness. So that's kind of my goal, is sweet spot, 75.
I love that precision. Like
right there.
Right there. Can we just get right there?
Mm-hmm.
That's my break even. That's so fantastic. I love Audio's brand. I think it's really incredibly well done, and it's a cool, it's way cooler than I am brand, but it's one of those brands that I just look at and I think, God, the creative behind it's really sensational.
Thank you.
Well, who's next? I know this is that moment where everyone's like, don't call on me. Okay, Chloe, thank you for being brave.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chloe, and my brand is Eunice. So I'm an acrylic jewelry designer. I specialize in laser cutting. And my sort of like early inspiration to fashion came from one of my first jobs. I was working at a secondhand clothing store, kind of like a thrift shop, but a little bit more curated. And it was a small business, so just working in that environment really inspired me and kind of made me realize that I could own my own business someday, and that was something that, you know, I could also do in my future. So that was sort of my early inspiration. And then for my brand, so I am kind of a direct-to-consumer brand right now. I also hand make everything similar to Audio. And what I would really like to do with my brand is continue to make it super community-based. So right now I work a lot of pop-ups in Omaha and Lincoln, and just sell direct-to-consumer through my website. So in the next like 3 to 5 years, I would love to just continue like building my brand in a very community-based way, but I also want to hopefully grow in the sense of bringing other people onto my team, because I'm very like people-oriented. Like I love working with other people. So I would love to work more on like collaborations with other people, or even be able to hire people at some point and just really get like the creative juices flowing and trying to expand my brand in whatever way I can.
We're a little spoiled. We got to get to know Chloe a little bit before, Cameron a little more than I did, but great founder, really benevolent vision. So I'm excited about Eunice and where it goes.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Create that big company. I'm looking forward to it. Laura, how about you?
Sure. So I'm Laura Brooks Dooland, and actually Emily Adams, my partner, has hopped on the call as well. Like I mentioned, I'm kind of crashing the party here. So we actually are PhD students at the University of Nebraska, and we've been working with Bianca Harley for the past couple of years, developing the measurement tool for the CODE initiative, which is the Commitment to Opportunity, Diversity, and Equity. And so it's underway now, and a lot of organizations are starting to use it, and they've been asking whether or not they can expand to their other branches. So we thought, well, we've been doing this on a voluntary basis so far, but maybe we can actually start to expand and use it for other businesses. So that's what we're trying to do now. And we're hoping to eventually have a very detailed, polished, like at various level of details, provide information to organizations on where they are on their diversity and inclusion journey, and potentially do some consulting around it. So do you have anything to add there, Emily?
I think you did great. That kind of explains what we're doing and where we hope to go.
How did you guys find yourself sort of angling toward this? What was that moment of inception for you?
Yeah, so we actually both study diversity and inclusion in the workplace for our PhDs, and Bianca came to our advisor and asked if we could evaluate different assessment tools. And so we came back and said, well, these tools are not very detailed and not super helpful. These tools are, but they're really, really expensive. So we will develop the tool for you if we can use it for our dissertation data. So we started that partnership, and we definitely got in over our heads more than we realized, but it's been a really great experience, and Bianca's amazing to work with, and everyone who's been on that project has really been incredible resources. So it's been a lot of fun.
First of all of you are CEOs, right? All of you are leading your companies, and you may not have any employees yet, but you are casting a vision as to what the world can and should be with your brand and with you as a leader. And I would say, if you haven't had a chance to see the work behind CODE that Laura and Emily have helped develop, you absolutely should look at it, and you should consider how that factors into how you build your business. So I'm humbled that you guys are on this call today and that you're joining with us. You are definitely not the odd duck out. You are a strong leader. And I will tell you, Cameron and I have done a fairly substantial amount of work alongside employers who are saying, I don't have a tool for this specifically related to talent. And there's a big, needy, trendy market there. So build well, build fast, don't overbuild. So thank you for doing it, because much like some of the other entrepreneurs here, the world needs it desperately, but the world needs it to be accessible too. So that's fantastic. I'm excited to see what you guys end up with. Okay, let's see. Erin Rose. My middle name is Rose, Erin, so I'm already a huge fan of yours. You really can't back off now.
Well, let's see. My name is Erin. My brand is Erin Rose, me, just generally. It's less of a fashion focused brand and more of me as a seamstress / stitcher kind of construction. So I work with a lot of fashion designers and stuff like that to help create things. But my earliest inspiration to get into fashion was, was it 2012 or so? Halloween. of 2012 when I decided to make my own costume, and it just spiraled from there into, you know, my entire life. And I guess that's just how it happens. Yeah.
Erin, what was the first costume?
It was Legolas from Lord of the Rings
Oh,
when I
wow.
had blonde hair.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And I think what's really cool, Erin, is that, you know, right now, as you're looking at, you know, right now it's me and how I build for myself. And I'm assuming you attend cons and stuff with a lot of these costumes. And so, but I know that market in particular, there's so much of that DIY mentality, but there's also a really big support system for the people who attend those cons. And I know a lot of them try to support each other when there's that skill set that they don't necessarily have. So whether it's, you know, 3D printing or being able to create these articles of clothing, I know that there's a really cool market there, and I've heard of some people who have started really successful businesses for people who are reaching out and they're like, hey, I saw this one particular piece that I would really like to see made, but I can't make it myself. So would you be able to do that for me? And so even if you're not pursuing that particular route, I know that there's a really cohesive group of people in a market there for those cons. So just always something to consider. And I'm just seeing from the picture of your Mad Hatter costume, and I'm assuming what your Legolas costume looked like, you've got some skills and you can flex a little bit and sell some of that. So just something to keep in mind.
Thank you. Yeah, I have done some of that for some people, more full costumes, but yeah, I have collaborated a couple times, but it's something I definitely want to get more into.
Awesome. That's great. So moving on, I had seen Hannah, you had raised your hand a little bit earlier, and I don't want to take that away from you. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your backstory, Hannah.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I fell in love with fashion when I was a little girl, sketching pictures when I was at my brother's baseball games, just wearing heels and makeup. And I ended up kind of really getting started in the fashion industry when I started opening up different retail stores. And my background ended up going to school for fashion merchandising and marketing, and then eventually digital media and transformation. And that's really where my passion is growing as an entrepreneur, growing in my business acumen, and really tying in this technical aspect in what I do. So I can kind of combine design thinking with business acumen and be able to kind of build out that way. My dream is to have a retail store, ideally one day a private label, but right now my focus is on getting something out there with being able to go to Magic and being able to have my own online retail store where I can start having to use different kinds of tools and technology to get my product out there, get my product in front of clients and customers. And the problem that I'm solving is offering kind of a vintage aesthetic with a contemporary fit with really high quality materials. A lot of what I'm seeing out there is kind of more of a costume look or just very low quality, and I want to bring it back into higher level of fashion.
Hannah, did somebody tip you off about speaking our love language? Did anybody else hear Hannah say the problem I'm solving? Like Cameron and I are probably butterflies right now. Just absolutely. I love that. Okay.
I speak of it. Thank you.
As you should. Stay in love with this thing for a long time. That's great. How about you, Liz? How can we learn about you?
Yeah, so I feel a little intimidated because I'm not sure what like my object would be that I'm selling yet. I still haven't connected the dots. I do a lot. My real job is a French translator for American Express, and then I also volunteer for Benson First Friday, and I run the market.
I thought I recognized you, Liz. I was like, I've seen you at BFF event for sure.
Yeah, so something that we've done since the lockdown is we've taken our market online, and it's really fun to see everyone have their like objects that represent them that they sell. And I also bookbind. I'm very crafty, so I can make my own patterns. From attending these, I've learned how to make my own tech pack. So I know how to put my if I create something to put it into production, I haven't done that yet because my priority is sustainability, eco-friendly. Like I just want all the loops to be closed, and I want it to be cyclical, whatever I create. But I just want to have like something that I can sell passively.
Yeah.
That represents. But because I do have the time to just come up with an object to just passively sell. So that's
what I like about what I'm hearing here is that you're looking for a market. And one of the things that I get to work with entrepreneurs all day, every day. I don't know how I landed in this role, but honestly, it's the best work because you only ever work with super curious people who have incredible vision. And Liz, what I like about what you're describing right now, your head is just on a swivel. You're just like looking for those markets and you're looking for those opportunities to build something that is phenomenal. And it's so exciting to get to know you right now at this moment in your journey. Because I think in a few months, you're going to come back and probably blow our mind with whatever you decide to create. And we're all going to say, I knew her when. She didn't know she was going to create that.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to see what you guys have to say.
This is great. Looks like I see our colleague Mitch on, and then I see Marisol from one of our partner agencies. How about we hear from Kirsten?
All right. So my name is Kirsten, and Liz, I'm with you as far as intimidation goes. I'm not in the fashion industry currently. Actually, I work for Conagra Brands, and I'm a scientist there. So I'm trying to create a vision for what I'm going to do when I'm done with that work, which hopefully will be in about 6-7 years when my daughter is out of college. But I always had an interest in clothing and fashion, not necessarily fashion, but more costumes. When I was a teenager, I wanted to be a costume designer, and I've been sewing clothes for a while for myself, Halloween costumes for my daughter, and I've been involved in Nebraska Shakespeare on the Green, work in the costume tent there, and then I found Denise and the workshop, and that was great. I was like, oh, yes, I can go back to that. So I'm really here to learn more about what would be possible. It's fascinating to hear everybody's stories and what they're doing, what their passion is. I'm not necessarily a super creative person in the sense of, oh, I have this vision, but I'm somebody who's very, very good at implementing and doing. And I think I'm more looking at fashion and clothing from a maybe construction point of view. There's a scientist in me, and when I work with Denise, I'm learning a lot about how to construct a pattern, how to drape, and that's opened a whole new world for me. So I'm just trying to get inspired and get some ideas for when I'm ready to start my own new adventure.
This is great.
Yeah.
James,
Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, Jameson, he's another one of these like local celebrities guys. So I personally get intimidated with Jameson and Heather just because their work is so beautiful. But Jameson, please just remind us that you're a human for a second.
Hi. So yeah, I've met a lot of you because I've worked as a fashion photographer with Heather for the last number of years. But I'm actually here not in the fashion space either. I have an idea for a financial services app that I want to develop to help people automate their budgeting and saving. So I'm here. I've talked to Cameron about this a little bit, but I just want to see if it's an idea and see what the next steps could be. And yeah.
Jameson, I love that. And this is something that we, all of you should know about. In about 8 weeks, the Startup Collaborative is going to take a handful of opportunities or concepts, a couple in that space that you're talking about, Jameson. And we've got some really nice strategic partners as well as some capital to deploy against it. So You are picking the perfect time to solve that problem.
That's what I like
on
to
a
hear.
lot of levels. So
Cool.
that's fantastic. It looks like we haven't heard from Margie yet. Margie. Margie, I think you might be on mute.
Now, can you hear me now?
There, yep. Hi.
Okay, I'm good. I'm Margie Tremblay, and I'm a millinery designer, and my label is Margie Tremblay Chapeau. And my first entrance into fashion basically was when I was in Chicago, and I started taking some classes in a needle art skill that I belong to. And so I learned how to do silk painting and a lot of other things like that. And I got into felting, and then that kind of led into hat making. So that's kind of a little history on that. My goal in 5 years is I also own a retail store, which has my hats, and it has art class in it, which of course is temporarily closed at the moment and has been since March. So I'm working on getting a website that is an e-commerce store. And I recently received a grant from the Sarpy Chamber, which I'm really excited about, that will help me pay for that. But that's what I want to do, is just do things online, and you know, eventually, because I'm 74 years old, eventually I'm not gonna want to go to the store every day, kind of thing. So that's my goal. And what did I leave out?
Margie, I think that I got a chance to sit next to you at Fashion Week.
You
and
did?
I remember, I think so.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, and I'm hopeful I'm not messing this up, I was chatting your ears off because I was just so fascinated with what you had been building. If I remember right, I might be mistaking you, but either way, I'm excited that you're on here. Grateful that you're spending the morning with us. Kevin, you've been patiently waiting. We see your face. Hello, Kevin. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, my name is Kevin. I'm kind of here because I'm a traditionally trained artist and illustrator. I don't like dealing with art directors. So I'm trying to find a way to market my art, and I've been doing that kind of through clothing recently, having it printed on silk scarves.
That's cool.
So I don't know what my goal is other than just to increase the visibility of my product and my business, and maybe to improve my networking skills.
Okay. Okay. This is great. Mitch, do you want to say hi to everybody?
Of course. Hi, everyone. Mitch Troy. I actually work with Cameron and Erica, and totally into fashion, appreciate it. Maybe we'll get inspired to pursue any of my ideas or dreams within fashion. But yeah, this is great. Happy Saturday, everyone.
Mitch heads up growth for our entrepreneurs. So he's the guy that gets them to 100 first customers. It's incredible. Marisol, how about you? Would you like to introduce yourself this morning?
Sure. Thank you, Erica. I appreciate it. Hello. Good Saturday morning, everyone. My name is Marisol Rodriguez, and I work with a program called Shark Hub. And our main goal is to help researchers from universities or from the marketplace to commercialize their ideas to make a business out of it. And I'm here because I work with entrepreneurs or people thinking about starting a business. And I am a fan of the Startup Collaborative, Erica and her team. And it's a Saturday morning, so I have some time to listen to the presentation and to learn from all of you. I was chatting with Christine, who said that she was a PhD from Conagra. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to connect with her because
there are some hitters on here, aren't there?
Yes, because she's a PhD and she's in the design industry, or that have that skill. And I sometimes we come across business people that want to start businesses, and they have a let me give you an example. So I'm working with a researcher right now who is working in the textile industry, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna need some design advice, right? Because he's developing a fiber to develop textile, and the having the design connection, that will make their business better, because he may need the skill of somebody who does design, if I'm making sense. So
Yeah,
anyways,
that makes perfect sense.
I was really excited, and thank you for the opportunity to be in here. And I'm gonna be in listening in listening mode. But if you wanna learn more about what we do, for all of you, is the website is sharpideashub.com. That's the
Marisol's
website.
fantastic.
Thank you, Erica.
She's a really incredible partner, and someone that you want to make sure knows where you're at in your process, because she's a great advocate for all entrepreneurs. So I'm going to buzz through TSC at a glance really quick, because that can set us up, and then we're going to do a bio break, a stretch break. These long Zoom calls, I think, are bad on all of our backs and on our joints, so it's helpful if we stand up. Maybe we do some yoga. Dawn, would you lead that? I'm teasing Dawn. So TSC, if you think about our organization, the Startup Collaborative, we are just about 4 years old. We'll turn 4 this fall. And my co-founder Nathan and I started this organization because when we looked at entrepreneurs in the Midwest specifically, they were starting to make really simple mistakes, and they were doing them in mass, and it could have been avoided. And so some of those simple mistakes cost them a lot of money. It lost investor money. The damage of feeling like a failure is also pretty psychologically hard. And so we wanted to make sure that those risks were mitigated, and that entrepreneurs in our backyard could avoid some of those simple missteps and really focus on getting to the business they wanted to the easiest and most cost-effective way possible. And so our mission over the next 5 years is to really support the growth and creation of 250 net new businesses. And I think we're just shy of about 100 of those right now, just shy. We might be a little lower. The pandemic has done some funky things to our numbers right here. But we exist, y'all, and this is no surprise to any of you, but turns out starting up, whatever you're starting, is a little tricky. There's a lot of unknowns in this process. It can be lonely. It can be sort of a myriad of Google searches to try and find information that you need. And it also, it is emotionally draining. And so we wanted to mitigate those risks, and we wanted to radically improve your odds. And so where we focus, typically we work with first-time founders or first-time to a new space founders. So Jameson, like you moving into fintech, that's where we end up being a really useful ally to you. And we really take this pledge seriously of radically improving your odds. We're very, very focused on making sure that you are doing the things that you need to in the sequence that you need to, so you're getting the right market signals and cues to take this company forward. And so how do we do that? Has anyone met my co-founder, Nathan Preheim? He's a lovely guy, and our team knows him very well. But if you know Nathan, he pretty much finds a way to gamify anything. And so he found a way when we were designing the Startup Collaborative to somewhat gamify it. And so you see each of these badges on here. They're just a bit of wind in the sails moment to help you find your way. So we have chunked the process of getting to your first 100 or 1,000 customers into bite-sized pieces. So we call these levels. Each level has very specific outcomes associated with those. Those outcomes are not something that Mitch and Cameron or Nathan and I said, well, we think this should be how it is. Those outcomes are actually derived from more than 100 conversations with capital providers. So you can think about investors, banks, etc., and asking them what makes a good deal. So we chunked out those traits of a good deal, and we sequenced those traits. So they're very transparent. So you as an entrepreneur know, okay, if I figured out what problem I'm solving, and if I found a handful of potential customers that agree that's a problem for them in their life, it's probably worth thinking about what the solution to that problem would be. And once you test some language around that, what that solution might be, then it's probably worth putting, in our world, wireframes around it, in your world, designs around it. And then once you test those wireframes or those patterns against those potential customers, and you get enough of a market signal to say, yeah, you're onto something here, you should consider carrying that forward. Then it's time to put the business model around it. How are you going to sell this thing? What are the pricing structures that are going to work for you in this? What do you want to make off of this company? Are there any key partners in this? For example, is there business partners or are there resellers on your behalf? Those type of decisions are all happening in what we call level 5. Then you look at that next level. The hard reality of starting up, and for those of you that are building these businesses now, I think we all know that you can do it alone. Absolutely. It's a lot better when you have a teammate. Partners and teams really make the difference in these early stages. There's a lot of work to be done, and it is easier to do that work when you're playing to your strengths and your partner is playing to their strengths. And so we talk a lot about role coverage. Who's doing what in the first version of this product? And can we stay in our lanes, and can we play to each other's strengths so we get there faster? Now, this might surprise you guys, but we actually haven't had any of these companies paper up till they get to that point. Because if you think about forming legal entities around what you're designing, let's just say a simple company creation costs a few $100. Well, who are you giving equity to in that company if you don't know what roles need to be defined based on the business model or based on the product? And then how are you deciding if it's a Delaware C Corp because you want to raise investment capital, or just an S Corp where you can make some nice incentives off of it? Those type of decisions are all informed by your business model, and that should be all informed by how the market's reacting. And by doing it in this sequence, y'all, you mitigate wasted money, wasted time, and building the wrong thing for a market that doesn't want it, right? So today we're going to focus a lot on the market, and then we're going to focus on that first iteration of what you're going to be building for that market. And your homework at the end of today is really going to be to test those assumptions that you're making on your lean canvas, which is a one-page business model, with customers. Talk to customers. We have a very common phrase at the Startup Collaborative: code does not make a company. Naturally, we're in the tech space, so we work with a lot of developers, and they are brilliant. They are artists in their own right, and they can come up with some really incredible apps or widgets. The challenge is, if they create those before they identify the market, then you're in this game of trying to figure out who wants this. Code doesn't create customer. And I would say in the fashion case, cloth doesn't make customer. Customers make customers, and use them in your process to build your business so you build it really sturdy. So that's a little bit about the Startup Collaborative. I gave you that overview because I really want you to understand, when we ask you questions today about customer, we're not just asking them because we're curious about them. We're asking them because that customer is so intimately involved in how you model this business and how you charge for this business and how you get compensated on this business, that if we can push them into the process of business creation sooner, you actually will get there faster. So if you talk to any of the entrepreneurs in the Startup Collaborative, they will likely say a couple things. Hopefully they say they like us, hopefully. The second thing that they will say is, man, you have to go slow at first, and then you go fast. And my favorite quote from one of our entrepreneurs was, I don't hear no. Now that we're selling, I don't hear no. That's very rare for an entrepreneur to be able to say that. And the only reason that entrepreneur could say that is because they spent all this slow time figuring out what to build and how to build it, that once they sunk a little bit of money into building it and sunk their teeth into selling it, it was a pretty straight shot forward. So that's what we're going to get into today, guys. I highly encourage you guys to use the chat. I am one of those, I don't know if I'm obnoxious or not. Cameron could probably vet if I am or not. I am like a constant chatter during meetings, like, oh, I have this thought, and then this one, and this one, and this one. Use it as your whiteboard and conversation. It's not interrupting anyone as we go. It's just adding to the dialogue, and it keeps us moving. So with that, y'all, I would love for you guys to, we're running a little bit over. I think we spent some really important time getting to know each other though, but I want you to put your one goal for today in the chat. So we're going to give you a couple minutes to do that. Can you guys hear the river in the background? Is it loud enough that you can hear it? No? It'd be great feng shui for you guys if you could. I'm ultra calm right now.
I'm seeing some great answers already in here for what the goals are going to be. And something, you know, specifically with fashion, and not all of us on this call work in the fashion industry to such a close degree, but I think that's something that recently the fashion industry has been really keen on sustainability, what fabrics are being used, the process of how those garments are being created and sold and resold. You know, this really kind of laser focus on what fast fashion is kind of bringing this disruption into the market overall too. So even if your brand or your company aren't focusing on those aspects, it's that kind of finger on the pulse mentality to just say, what am I trying to build? But also, what are my customers most frequently coming to me for? Is it because I am sustainable or I bring in eco-friendly materials? We've had conversations like this with one of our fellows, Abby Gross with Chant and the Chant brand. And she came to us and she had this fantastic idea on how do I create plastic bags that are friendly for event spaces so I can bring all of the things I need into, you know, a bag with all the requirements for these spaces. But she saw that there was this really keen focus on, I need to make sure that I'm not using the poison plastic. I'm not using PVC. So she found a way to integrate this new type of plastic TPU for her bags. And she's seen that be kind of the North Star for what a lot of her customers are looking for. Yes, they want to go to events and use bags that are going to be friendly for those spaces, but more importantly than not, she's creating kind of this shift in what type of materials are being used, and her customers are so loyal to her and that brand because of it. So I can drop, oh, looks like Erica's way ahead of me. She already dropped the link in there. So that's going to be a really great website to check out to see how Abby has taken our process at the Startup Collaborative and that closeness to customer and been able to integrate messaging and product description and all these different aspects that come not from her and her own brain, but really from what the customers are saying. And that's what we want to try to focus on in these early phases. Kind of set our own biases aside, put it on the bookshelf for now. That stuff's important because it got to you to where you are today. But really see how can the customers start to integrate what the, you know, kind of what the most valuable portion of your company is going to be.
Mm-hmm. This is great, y'all. So I'm going to give you one more piece of homework before we move to your quick little break here. So what I'm sharing, I'm going to share with you a link in the, let me just make sure it's all still very clean. I'm going to share with you a link inside the chat. Inside that link, I would like each of you to open that up and make a copy of that file. So you've got a file that's called customer persona template. And once you're in there, guys, oh, look at, oh, wow, so many humans in there. This is great. You'll go up here to file. You'll go to make a copy. You can do entire presentation. It's literally 3 copies of the same slide. And you're going to make a copy of that. And that's how we're going to be working for the next piece of this segment. Okay, as you guys are working on that, I encourage you all to, at the very least, stand up during this quick break. Refresh yourself, get your hydration, whatever you need here. Nibble on a little bit of snack. Feel free to nibble and stuff throughout this too. We're kind of getting into the lunchtime hour. And then let's meet back here, guys. It's 10:58 right now. So let's try and be back on this call. This is an odd time. It sounds lunacy, but like 11:02 or 11:03. There you go. 11:02 or 11. I just said it. It's very odd. We're just going to go with it.
All right. 11.
Okay.
I need more water. Make sure you're staying hydrated. Drink water. It's hot out there. All right. We'll see you all in a couple minutes. Seeing some people coming back. I want to make sure I get the name right again. Is it Mariana? Mariana, and I know you're chewing right now, so don't feel like you need to unmute or anything. But I'm intrigued to hear about how you heard about this Zoom call, since you said you're in Manhattan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how'd you hear about this call?
I think it was I get invited to a lot of things because I've been signing up for a lot. So
Yeah.
I think it was through an Eventbrite. Is that possible?
Great. Good to hear that our the algorithms are working to getting these events, far and wide. And while we exclusively work, not exclusively, but we usually work with kind of startups, tech startups in the greater Omaha area, which is about 7 different counties through Iowa and Nebraska. But it's so exciting to see that the web is spreading and we're reaching even more people. So I don't know, it's just great to have more perspectives on here.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of a sponge right now, just trying to take, so anytime anything like through, I mean, obviously I'm constantly on my phone because what else are my, like, there's not a lot of going out and really meeting with people. So I just, I get a lot of stuff emailed to me or through Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever. So I'm just kind of taking in as much as I possibly can. But yeah, so thank you for having this.
Thank you for attending. And again, just as a reminder, I know not everyone's back yet, but if we're saying anything, if there's any terms that you're hearing that you're not sure about, again, I've been in that situation. I don't come from kind of the startup specifically background. And so a lot of what I had to do was just ask questions. And so when you've got those questions, if we're saying anything in any of the presentations, or we're starting to uncover some of those aspects about our customers, and you just want to dive a little bit deeper, drop those questions in the chat, and we'll try to either answer them on the call, or we can just answer them through the chat as well too. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Believe me, I was like the king of questions for my first couple months at the Startup Collaborative. So keep those up as well.
So, all right, but before you move on, so so basically you guys have a service, you provide a service for people like us who want to, I guess, develop their business a little more, take it to the next level. So you're more of like you kind of coach us, or you give us like the form and function, you give us like the skeletal structure of it, and then put on like the muscle.
So it's, yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. It's really common for most people when they first reach out to us. So we took the model of what an accelerator or an incubator usually is, and we kind of broke it down and we made it on demand. So as Erica was kind of alluding to in that presentation, we've got those 15 different levels that we accelerate people through. But as they are accelerating into each of those levels, we try to connect them with adjuncts and industry experts who can help them along the way. Because at the end of the day, you are all the CEOs of your companies. We want to make sure that you are able to kind of bear hug every aspect of what these different business development facets are going to be. And not all of us can be experts in finance or digital marketing or sales. And so what's really great is, rather than us kind of throwing content at someone and saying, all right, complete these objectives, we actively work through them, and we connect them to the people who will kind of be their ally, or their kind of sidekick or sidecar along the journey as well too. And so it's a program that works through each of those levels, but it's very much move at your own pace, but not being afraid to have that sense of action, being able to say, I'm ready to move forward. Or a lot of times it's, I don't feel like I got enough information here. I want to make sure I can go through this process again. And so while we do have the 15 different levels that we accelerate people through, it's very flexible and organic, just as we want our startups to be really able to be flexible to what the market's saying, to what their customers are saying. And so I think it's that organic aspect that a lot of programs are missing out on.
Yeah. So to mitigate any kind of mistakes or upsets, or like, oh, I should have done it differently, or waste of money, time, effort, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And our main requirement at the beginning is time. We try not to charge any of our startups to use our program. Our program is specifically made to be free to use, with incentives down the road that can provide capital opportunities. But it's really, we want to make sure that time is the only thing that we're asking of you. Time, and then that ability to say, I'm ready to put myself aside and work on kind of what the scaffolding is going to be for this business or this startup.
Very good. Thank you.
We got more.
Looks like we've got a lot of our friends are back. So normally, as you can tell, Cameron gets to meet every entrepreneur that raises their hand and sort of gives us a look. He's the most charming and easily the most eloquent in that early stage, which is why he is best suited there. But Cameron, would you want to lead folks through sort of customer persona, and maybe we tag team a little, but we can talk through who is their customer persona and how should they be looking at that persona and how that might manifest as we get into their Lean Canvas?
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. So rather than, excuse me, oh my gosh, my voice, it must be Saturday morning. Rather than sharing my screen, I want to make sure that you are all able to edit into those copied versions of the customer persona. So make sure you pull that up. And then as we're going through, I'll just kind of be directing where I'm at on the page and what we can start to look at. So if you want to bring up your customer persona document or the customer persona template, you'll see we've got these 3 different copies. And so when we first talk to entrepreneurs, we try to say these customer personas are really going to be kind of a conglomeration of what the customer segments are that you're targeting. And so while most people say, oh, yeah, I know who my customer is, it's the, the person who buys, clothes at a boutique. What are those specifics about them? And so while we like to use real people with real photos, it's not necessarily a requirement. It just helps so much to kind of put a face to a name. And so feel free to, when you're working on these a little bit more in depth after this call, include some photos of people that kind of bring that personification forward. And for a lot of people, the person's name at the top, it can be, if it's Joe Smith, they might put a little bit of a tagline. What is the thing that identifies that customer segment? Is it the work from home Joe Smith? Is it the serial entrepreneur Joe Smith? And what that's going to do is help bring that conglomerate all together. It's going to make it really cohesive. So for those first two portions, the insert person name, as well as right below that, the insert their real picture here, that'll just really help to kind of be the North Star for what you're building toward. And then right below the photo is kind of the quote from the person that was revealed during the surveys and the interviews that we'll explain a little bit deeper. So what are those testimonials or those little tidbits of sound bites that people are saying are their most pertinent problems? Why are they willing to seek out a solution for this? What's the thing that's bringing them towards your potential fashion brand? Is it that you're looking at bringing that sustainable function, or that you're looking at bringing in kind of your own cultural aspects, if you're looking at kind of a historical portion of your brand as well too? What are those things that they're saying that you hear and you're like, that is the soundbite? I need to keep that close to who this customer persona is. And then down right below where we have age, job title, location, reports to, this can update and change as well. So these are just kind of those easily identifiable demographic factors toward what are those most consistent kind of demographic frames to who this customer segment is. The meat and potatoes of the customer persona is this middle section where you can see we've got those bullet points describing the user and thinking of what this is for their bio. So while this might not seem like it pertains specifically to the customer that you're looking at, since we usually work in more tech-heavy spaces, this middle portion is really where you're going to include all of those different facets of why you reached out to them, but also why they were being vocal about trying to see what those problems are that they have specifically and what solutions they're intending to use. And this is also a really great place to say, what else are they using? Do they have particular brands that they're really fond of? I know when we had conversations with Chloe and her company Eunice, a lot of what we talked of was, is this going to be something that's a bit more like Glossier? What are those aspects of those other companies that your customers are saying, I love that they have this e-commerce platform and it allows me to find the products that I want, easily check out, and find a way to kind of build out what my online profile will be and what products are suggested to me. So what are those little minute details that help kind of round out what the customer persona is going to be? Over on the right-hand side, on the top, you'll see the gain maker value prop as well as the painkiller. And I have always loved how Erica is able to describe this portion of the customer persona. And so Erica, I'll let you dive a little bit deeper into the gain maker and painkiller. It's so crucial to this portion of the customer persona.
This is the fun part, guys. So we had a chance, it's probably been 2 years. And Denise, you'll remember this too. So FIM and the Startup Collaborative, we share a human. We share a founder called Chris and Malco. And I tell you about Chris, I dropped the link to her company in the chat. Her company is called Stature. So not that you would ever know this if you met Carissa today via Zoom, but Carissa is very tall. She's 6'2", is that right, Denise? And she is a professional woman. She's constantly on the go. She's a strong leader. She's one of those people that walks into the room and everyone's sort of drawn to her, right? She's charismatic, and she has always been insecure about the fact that her suit jackets go to here and her pants are capris, even though they're the long legs. and the waist never quite fits right, and the shirts are always a little short. I'm a little taller too, so naturally I just gravitated completely toward Carissa when she came in and said, I hate that I am standing up in front of boardrooms, civic groups, etc., and I can't even get my suit jacket down to here. It makes me feel insecure, and I'm a very confident woman. So that was sort of a hatching point for my stature. What she did is she took the same customer persona that you guys are looking at, and I'm going to kind of run you through some of the things, but she realized that tall women knew their worth, right? Any person knows their worth, I should hope, or we want them to know their worth. But something about the clothing options that were available in the market at the time was making them feel insecure. And if you think about the fact that, like, most of the day you're wearing clothes, and in this group I think we can agree that clothes are sort of a signal to our identity, to our style, to our feelings, to sort of the culture that we want to give off. And if you're constantly feeling insecure because your clothes aren't long enough for you or aren't fitted right, it creates just this sense of general insecurity. And so she said, that's the problem I have to solve, is that feeling right there, that feeling that I can be exceptional, I can be smart, I can be beautiful, I can be the best leader in the room, but my suit jacket's not long enough and it throws everything off. And she's like, I know it sounds vapid, I know it sounds silly, but it's the truth. So her value prop was stand tall. That's how simple it was. Stand tall. Don't shrug, don't slouch, don't do these things that as a tall woman you would do to compensate for the clothing not fitting appropriately. So what I like about stature was her ability to look at this persona, and she's a direct to consumer brand, right? So you look at this customer persona template and you're probably thinking, God, this is like a business thing. But think about this through stature's eyes. How does this woman fit into an org chart? Well, we know that she's likely a professional woman. So she likely has people reporting to her, and she reports to people, or she runs the show. But she has all these other roles too. Through discovery, Carissa found most of her customers were mothers, and their kids were elementary age kids. So that was another role that she had to understand in their life, because there was sort of a need to shift and go through all of the lights. Because then there was the wife role, then there was the girlfriend role, then there was the civic leader, all the roles that this single woman was playing had to factor into Carissa's first line. It couldn't just be the boardroom. It had to work for dates with her partner. It had to work with nights out with her friends. There had to be some cohesion amongst her first line. And you actually see it come out a lot more. Denise collaborated very heavily with Chris on her second line, and you really see the persona come out more on the second line than even in the first line. You think about their biggest challenges. Well, I just gave you all of their roles. Everything's a challenge in there. So what can't happen is their clothes can't look dumb, can't not fit, and it has to be part of their armor to get through their day. If you think about their motivations, it's achievement, it's pride, it's the ability, truly, it's the ability to be comfortable as they were, to have their shoulders back, to wear their heels, and to feel confident as a tall woman. And some of this might sound really vapid, guys, but it was fascinating. Carissa talked to probably 100 plus women who were 5'10" and taller. And these women gushed. The things that they let out. And she did all this, by the way, before she ever had a sketch of any design, before she ever met Denise to ever make a pattern. And what she heard was that some girls that are like 5'8", this was the funniest thing to me. If you're 5'8", you're not tall. So there was this sense that, like, yeah, I get that you think you're tall, but I'm 6 foot. I'm very tall. And it's the air up here is very different. She also heard all of these sentiments of insecurity throughout all of that. So what she was able to put in here was all of the things that this woman was going through. And all of that, the reason I tell you that entire narrative and all of the roles of that persona is because on the end of that, Carissa knew that her persona was heavily motivated by Instagram and their friends' referrals. PR was up next. So were they in the news? So now what has she done? She's eliminated wasteful spending in her advertising, marketing, and sales budget. And she's focused that money and that time on the 3 channels that her customer needed the most. She also realized that her woman was constantly on the go. The idea of ever going to a tailor, which by the way, we would all say like, oh, you would go to a tailor, right? You wanted a little longer, just go to a tailor, figure it out. This woman doesn't have space for that in her day. She can't drive 30 minutes to a tailor, spend 30 minutes there, come 30 minutes back, in 2 weeks, follow up, go 30 minutes, the whole thing. It was too much. It was a non-starter for her. That influenced the additional unique value prop that Carissa found. So Stand Tall was sort of that vision. That was that boost. That was that statement that she was giving them. That was the promise, what she wanted to make to her customer. The business model actually took seamstresses and tailors and said, I have, Denise, created these beautiful patterns, these beautiful scaffold of shirts, etc. I'm going to take these, I'm going to leave them largely unfinished because I want your exact measurements. I want this to make you feel so comfortable in your own skin that it fits like a glove. So customers would send those measurements in. The seamstress on the other end would make sure that it was custom tailored to them, not at a custom tailor price, by the way, at a price of J. Crew, because this was a comparable place they were shopping, which they learned in customer discovery, and then they would ship it out. The model is so smart, and it was so intimately built to Carissa's woman. It understood the factors that surrounded her day-to-day lifestyle and infused those to insert convenience into the sales process. It infused insights into making sure that the conversion or sort of the acquisition money, if you may, was well spent. This is a brand that I think has a ton of opportunity, but I think if you guys think about each of your brands, there's a lot of play there too. So there's a couple other brands on here that I think you guys might benefit from maybe a more tech-centric example. So Jameson, Laura, Emily, I'll kind of think through what that might be. I'm specifically thinking of a company called Audit Miner. So what Audit Miner does, again, also, I'm not an accountant, and this will become very apparent as I start to stumble through this example. But if you are an accountant, there is a strong chance that across the course of your career, you will be asked to perform what's called a benefits audit. So employers that have more than 100 employees by federal law are required to audit all of those 401k packages. So I don't know if any of you guys are on sort of a traditional corporate payroll right now. Kirsten, you're at ConAgra, so you might have some of those great, my husband works at ConAgra too. Thank you for all those great benefits, ConAgra. But at 401k, there's like 5 or 6 401k providers at a ConAgra, right? Because they might switch every few years. Well, you have to get all of that audited at the individual employee level. And for the accounting firm, this is federally mandated. So there's not a lot of market here, right? There's not a lot of like margin these guys can pull from this. And quite truly what they do is they get a PDF from Fidelity for Erica Wassinger's 401k. The accountant copies and pastes every line of that PDF, puts it into a new Excel sheet, then runs their formulations on it, which ultimately yield the audit. That sounds brutal to me. If anybody else just had the urge to like fall over, it's because that is mind-numbing work that is not playing to that accountant's highest value. So the accountant hates it. They don't make money off of it. The firm's making them do it because they think if they get these benefit audits that they can get the bigger book on the audit overall for the business. It's just, terrible. Kelly knew this because Kelly is one of these rare humans. Kelly Meehan is the founder against this that like loves it. She like loves this work. She's an expert in benefits audits. And if you talk to her about it, she has a very different story on this. You would think that you're riding across a unicorn in a series of rainbow covered clouds. Like, it sounds wonderful, according to Kelly. She developed software that basically compresses that PDF scrape to formula so the accountant can do it much faster. So what might have taken, I forget the exact numbers, it was in the hundreds of hours. What might have taken, say, 100 hours now takes less than 10 hours. They don't have to change their pricing on the audit, but now they have freed up all of those billable hours for the accounting firm and made a serious margin. So they took a piece of accounting firm's products and services that was really a loss leader and turned it into a profit center. So Kelly did this because she knew this piece of the process is terrible. The accountant hates it. The firm is sort of does it begrudgingly because they hope they can get on the other end, but now they can get more profit out of it. So firms are really excited about this, as you can imagine. So this sort of helps you get a little bit of an example of what you can find out in these. If you were to look at Kelly Mann's persona, accountants are naturally skeptical. So where do they find product referrals? From their friends or potentially at a trade show. They're not like flash and fancy. Her marketing content, I swear, we had to laugh several times through the process to get her ready for launch. Because of course we're like, oh, you can do some really fun things with social media. You can do this. She's like, they're not. No, that's not my audience. Send them an email. And it better only have a few sentences, and it better talk about the profit they can make off of it. And that's it. And it also can't come from anybody but me. Kelly said this, because they don't trust any of you fools. They want to talk to their peer. So she learned and knew her customers so well that when it became time to launch the product, she understood how to talk to them, how to bring them on board. And these two examples, we want to give you these just because you can see, if you can kind of anchor in here, if you can anchor in on the customer and what their habits are and what their needs are, their emotional needs as well as their practical needs. I would argue those accountants had a lot more practical needs than emotional, but Carissa's needed more emotional versus, well, that's practical too. I think it's unfair that women didn't have clothes that fit them for so long, especially when men, you guys can get your like, your collar size, all this stuff. Like, it's just absurd. So these are a couple ways that we want you to think about it. So what we're going to do now, y'all, is give you about 5 minutes in your breakout rooms. Kelly's last name is Mann, M-A-N-N. And her company is auditminer.com, I think. I think it's a .com. I think she pulled that off. You'll see a lot of our companies have .co. Most of us don't want to spend the money on the com. It's too expensive. Feel free to do that too. We're going to spend 5 minutes. This is our chance to move into breakout rooms, assuming we can figure this out. Denise, do you feel like you know how to do it? Or now that we're host, Cameron, do you know how to do it?
I'm
We might
moving
not be
them
able
to
to.
breakout rooms.
Okay, so what we're going to do, y'all, we'll go to breakout rooms for 5 minutes, which basically means we're just going to put you into rooms of 2 or 3 people each for 5 minutes. And I want you to each share a little bit about some of the insights you think that might drive your customer persona. Okay? So the timer is going to start. We'll come back together.
Okay.
Breakout rooms. They're so great when they work, but Denise, I hear you. The Zoom thing is just, Oh, it looks like it just had a 60-second timer for that one. Is there a way, Denise, to extend the timer for breakout rooms? And if not, because we're at about 11:30, I think it would be okay if we forego the breakout rooms, maybe share it with 3 or 4 of you if you have any of these insights, or if you have specific questions about, I want to make sure I'm finding or figuring out this particular aspect of my customer base. I think that's okay that we can kind of dive a little bit deeper into a specific way of looking at this customer persona template. And then we can lead into kind of an open Q&A and discussion with any of you. So if anyone, now that we've kind of done a deep dive on the customer persona template, who has questions or kind of some insights that you think you have already of your customers that you'd like to share? Because we can obviously all learn from each other and the experiences we've already started to garner.
I'd kind of love if audio started, because your customer is so pronounced that I think you're going to have some really good zingers in there, kind of. Zingers isn't the right word, but you know.
Sure. So I've looked at your thing. I've done some other like ideal customer things, so I can at least touch on who my customer is, maybe not in the words you use, but I definitely know my customer. I call my ideal customer Lex, L-E-X. They're in their late 20s. They have a professional job, but it's in a creative space, maybe like a community manager, organizer at like a film house, or maybe they work in the marketing department at an art gallery, something like that, where it's like they definitely touch into the creative world, but they're not necessarily an artist themselves. They are very active in their community with the arts. They go to like art openings, their friends are musicians, that kind of thing. So they spend a lot of their free time out and about. They walk everywhere, or they take public transportation. One of the pain points is being able to be professional during the day and just express themselves at night. They can do that very easily, but maybe on a, not like a super budget, but like finding those pieces that they can make iconic in their own life that are special to them and speak to what they want to show the world. So they live in a city. And what else did you want to know?
You said something interesting in there. It sounds like they really take a lot of care in finding any piece. So there might be sentimental value attached to it. Does that give you any insight as to kind of where they shop? This is probably not an Amazon shopper.
This is someone who curates every part of their life, from like what they eat to what they do, what their space looks like, what their schedule looks like. Everything is like curated for them by them. Like the little quotes that people would say about them is like, I wish Lex could be my personal stylist, or I love going to a party that Lex throws because it is like detailed, you know? So definitely when they shop, it's like they know the shops they go to are also curated.
Interesting. So are they a bit of an early adopter in other aspects of their life?
Yes.
Okay. So when you think about their online habits, what are they reading or looking at? Where do they sort of inform their view on the world?
So they're probably looking at runway shows themselves. They know, like, they probably have a set of favorite designers. So they're seeing the first views. They're maybe not shopping because my customer typically isn't a rich kid exactly, but they know where they want to spend their money. So they'll see the runway shows and they'll be able to pick and choose what parts of the style they want to do. So it's like runway, they're seeing concerts, they're informing themselves through like, they see influencers, but it's not
like a mommy blogger.
No, they're
It's like the
influencers.
musician.
Yeah, their influencers are like the first touch point of culture. They're probably a
Gotcha.
natural influencer, but they don't want that lifestyle.
They don't see themselves as much.
No.
So a couple things that I don't know if y'all heard in there that I'm sure audio has already factored this into your business plan. You know, they sort of resent that influencer titling, but they have a ton of pride in their ability to set culture. And that's a really unique balance. So you could really understand that if you didn't know that depth of audio's customer, you would assume influencer marketing might be a spot for them. If you didn't understand this sort of pride in authenticity and their own style and their ability to hand curate. They don't want to be sold to, and they don't want to be somebody's sales puppet. So it's an interesting way that you can develop relationships with them, right? Because it isn't going to be pay per click, those type of situations. It's really going to have to be very deep, intentional relationship building. Perhaps a little bit of mainstream PR that fits into the publications that they read from journalists they trust. But other than that, this is not an overt sales cycle like you might see elsewhere. That is so fascinating.
It's been a little tricky to find that balance where I can't just, it's a normal Facebook ad isn't really going to be that effective for me, but hitting like party hosts, and I have some loyal customers that I can like occasionally just send an extra thing to because they're in front of people.
I really like that. Okay, I'm kind of curious, Laura, Emily, when you sort of think about your customer persona, if I were to make an assumption, you're almost selling into CEOs and to HR directors.
Yeah, so we've kind of identified a mid-size for-profit company. Likely our touch point would be the HR manager. Maybe they have a D&I professional on board, likely not. And so they are, an HR department. They're not really knowing where to start on their HR journey. They have a lot of fears that if they measure these things, they're going to find out that they're not doing well, and then other people might find it out. They might be looking for maybe a cheap off-the-shelf measurement tool, or they could be looking for something more in-depth that's extremely expensive. So that's probably the bigger companies. We would be more in that mid-size range.
You hit on something really interesting in there, Laura, and this is what you guys will understand. And I see some questions that I'm going to make Cameron talk a little bit about how you get to know your persona a little better. Laura mentioned there is a lot of fear about measuring what is happening from an equity standpoint inside a company. So especially right now, when there is a lot of people who are saying, I want to start a better journey, I want to be better at something, but I'm really terrified of how bad I might actually be. And so you're coming into specifically right now a moment where these people not just feel like they have a simple task to complete, I need to do a diversity audit. They feel like their legacy, their reputation, honestly, maybe even their humanity is kind of on the line here, right? Like, what if I find out that I'm a horrible person? And so the way that you all mitigate some of that, and the way that you help them sort of speak to the opportunity that it opens up and the good growth that comes from it, will be a very tricky balance. It's similar, I understand the topics are very different, but it's not dissimilar to the nuance between audio's customer resenting an influencer, but also setting culture. You're walking this really fine line, or you're kind of wobbling on a tightrope between needing to measure to get to the growth, but understanding that the measurement embeds a ton of anxiety and fear. And I'm guessing it's a decision that they're going to have to bring in other stakeholders too, like the CEO, like perhaps internal communications. And so you have to mitigate each of them feeling like, okay, I'm brave enough to ask these questions and brave enough to find out what's really going on. That is really interesting. And that means your sales cycle is different too. I mean, you need a lot of content that talks about the upside that comes with measuring this, that they can pass through the organization, that they can help other people advocate for the decision to use you all. You guys need sort of that velvet glove approach, right? Like, I am a really safe spot. It's totally comfortable. You can trust, which you two embody already. But that sort of piece of this becomes important in how you communicate that upside with the recognition that there is some real fallout and risk across any organization in these categories right now. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay, Cameron, how do we get to these insights?
Yeah, I was just going to mention one of these insights are, or I guess not really one, but all of them are going to be uncovered as we're doing surveys and interviews with our customers or our intended customers. And we've made that process really easy. And we can share this with you as we kind of like get near the end of the call in what we call our pre-validation packet. And so the pre-validation packet is actually, it contains levels 1 and 2 of our program, but it's giving you those templates and those tools to not just say, okay, now talk to your customer. For most people, it's like, well, how do I do that? Do I randomly email? Do I cold call? What's the process for that? And so we've eliminated kind of that worry about, I want to make sure I'm doing this right. I want to make sure I'm not selling to these customers either. I want to make sure that I'm uncovering this knowledge. And so we've built out survey tools, all built with the kind of Google Drive forms. And what's really great is that we have the templates ready to go for any entrepreneur startup to use. It's really just making a copy of it, like we did for the customer persona, and then finding ways to plug in some of those stories about why you're uncovering these problems and why you're interested to learn more. And so that's kind of a really crucial next step. And as you're having these conversations and you're just intently listening to what your customers are saying surrounding where you're kind of seeing yourself fit into the market, a lot of it is going to be based on kind of education. Most consumers and most customers know what they know because of what they've been told. And so especially, we know with the fashion industry, they only know what's available because of what they see on social media, online, through ads, whatever it happens to be. And so as you're hearing these things coming back and these responses, and you're starting to have these conversations with your customers, there might be a lot of those insights of, I didn't know this was available, or I only shop in this area because that's how, my company has done it historically in the past, or that's how my family shops. And so what you'll see with those insights is, oh, there's this really key portion of, I need to make sure that I'm bringing some education, that I'm both empowering my customer to learn more, but also to know where they're shopping and why they're shopping with me. And so that's one of the most common things, is that people are seeing that there's this really keen sense of, oh, I need to make sure that I'm trusting my consumer, that they want to learn more, but I'm also making sure that I'm giving them that power to have some potential feedback into how this is going to be built out. I think that's one of the coolest things about these early stage startups, specifically in the greater Omaha area, but even nationwide, is when you allow your customer to have that kind of that power to say what they want to see or what problems they have with the industry, they feel so inclined to follow up with you, to test out your prototypes, to kind of be that really vocal first base customer that is adoptive and they're willing to spread the word. And so I think fostering those relationships so early on is one of the most crucial aspects to starting up, no matter where you're at, because you're empowering your consumer first. And then you're saying, how can we do better from here?
Denise asked a really important question. Should you have the product in mind before you go out and talk to them? Possibly, right? Possibly. And you wouldn't be here if you didn't already have an idea of what you want your product to be or what your product is today. But if you start to branch your customer base beyond your friends and family network, understanding what they need emotionally and rationally without any idea that you exist helps you come back to them with something that fits their specific needs. And so when I think about Mariana, your sustainable fashion. If I were you and I were to go out and talk to people that were sort of reconsidering their wardrobe, I would ask them a lot of questions on what happens when you don't use this product anymore. When you're tired of that shirt, what do you do with it? How do you make use of it? You know, no one's really cracked the code on making sure that we are sustainable fashion consumers continuously. I think that there are sustainable pieces of fashion, but no one is helping me understand how to put my product back into the market or recycle it effectively. And maybe I'm wrong on that. I actually do think there's like thread up and things like that, but those are all models that you can look into and figure out, how do I take my private label, embed some of that thread up or rent the runway mentality, and then make something that's supercharged, right? So those conversations will be important as you're talking with them. I did want to just touch on Jameson. You know, you're going into a financial services space. One of the trickiest conversations, regardless of where you are, is money management. So thinking through, especially right now, we are still in the midst of a pandemic. Unemployment across this country is surging. Money is one of those things that I think it is fair to say, and I should look at Google Trend data on this, but it is a terrifying topic right now. People are freaking out. And so the velvet glove there is going to be really important, and the way that you educate and empower will be really important. One way that Cameron does a lot of our acquisition, and it's like my favorite hack of his. So we actually are a direct to consumer model too. We're trying to find people like you to start up, and we want to work with you on it, and we want you to win. And so Cameron will probably every month or so, maybe you do this more often than you tell me about. He goes into Google Trends and he'll search business idea, which basically says how many people in the world, and it's specifically in the United States, are searching for business idea. And then he'll look for how to start up. And then he'll drill down into Nebraska. What's happening in Nebraska? And it is literally based on this data that we decide when we start socializing, more capital that's available, more concepts that are available, those sorts of things. So he uses that. We don't have huge ad budgets, you guys. We've got like, well, not very much at all right now, but we were running off a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 a month on ads. So we got to use that really powerfully. So that type of stuff is important. So I've put another doc in the chat. This is an important one, y'all. This is your lean canvas. For those of you that haven't heard of a lean canvas, what you should know is that most of us have the attention span of a goldfish, myself included, right? This is what has been proven about Americans now. And I think what you all very much know is that the market, especially right now in 2020, has accelerated so rapidly that business plans that were created a year ago are completely out of date. And I would argue that that was always kind of the case, but it's easier to signal that right now. So inside here, I've got a lean canvas, you guys. This left half of this and the right half of it work in tandem, okay? So what I want you to think about on the left half is really your product. It's that thing that Liz and Kirsten, you guys are going to kind of manifest. The right half of it is the market. What does the market want? How do I find the market? How do I sell to the market? Those type of things. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of the individual buckets on here so you can start to think through. My challenge to you is don't go so deep. Think about bullet points here. Think about putting this in pencil, because as you continue to expand new customers, as you have those conversations, you're going to want to erase those assumptions that prove untrue. And you're going to want to put the things that prove to be true in pen. So we're actually going to start on the right side, guys, because that's actually where we started today. We started on the market. So you have an idea of your customer segments. Audio described hers perfectly. You know, they are a professional. They likely work in a very creative space. So when you think about Audio's customer, how can she find them? I mean, is it as simple as looking at some of the theater houses' staff pages? Is that an acquisition way that she could start to build her lead list? Perhaps, right? She has such intimate knowledge of where they are. If you think about your channels, you have those on your customer persona. What do they trust? They don't trust a mommy blog. Does anybody trust a mommy blogger anymore? I mean, let's be realistic here. Maybe. I hope not. That mommy bloggers are what got me out of public relations. I will tell you that when I had to stop pitching the Wall Street Journal and pitch a mommy blogger, I was done. So this is important to look in here. Unfair advantage. What are you doing better than anybody else? And y'all, most of us are from Nebraska. So Denise, when she introduces herself, she's like, oh, I'm the workroom manager. Do you know what she does a hell of a lot better than anybody else? She actually understands people that ride horses and how eccentric they are and how their fashion does not fit into a typical bucket over here. And she is incredible at that subset. And she understands their physical needs because she understands what they like to wear. She understands where their ego plays into that. She understands where their budget plays into that. She understands how they influence. And so Denise's really, really intimate knowledge of that market is her advantage. And what Denise has done really exceptionally well is she said, Erica, I understand that you actually can't even ride a horse, but you probably like that persona. You want to be a little like that. So how do I craft my design to fit Erica, the sort of watered down version, can't ride a horse, interested in that world though, and my ultra horsing woman. And so that is Denise's unfair advantage in that market. When you think about your unique value prop, this comes back to Carissa Malco saying stand tall. And then it's backed up with how it fits into her business model. I'm going to get tailors to act a little like an Uber model. They're going to measure it perfectly to you. That is her unfair advantage. Now let's move a little onto the left side to your product, the problem. So coming back to some of these things that you all talked about, I need to figure out how to help corporations better live their value of inclusivity and equity within their organization. The problem is they don't know what they don't know. Therefore, they don't have a starting point to make meaningful change. And I'm totally making that up, Emily and Laura. I'm sorry if I butchered that.
I essentially have that written down.
Fantastic,
So,
fantastic.
yeah, you're right there.
Jameson, and I'm making a big leap on yours. Let's say if you were targeted to millennials. Millennials are mounted with massive amounts of student loan debt. Our wages are literally at the exact same level our parents' wages were when they were our age. Well, when our parents, we're not seeing any growth of our income comparative to previous generations. And we are bad at saving. And we are in the midst of a pandemic. People are getting laid off left and right, and we can't figure out how to manage our money. And by golly, Amazon's just so stinking easy to spend so much money on every other day. So how do I do this better? And I'm making it up completely. And there's a lot of things in here that we can all think about. How do I do it better? Because really at the end of the day, if I can't manage my money, I feel like I'm a little out of control of my life. It's this dark part of my life. I don't like to talk about it. I don't want anybody to know that I'm not good at it. It makes me feel kind of stupid. It's a whole thing. So the problem, what else are they doing to solve it right now? Jameson, there's Mint, there is Betterment, there's Elvis, there's all these things. But guess what? No one's really teaching me how the hell to make simple day-to-day decisions about how to use my money. And unless I go to a financial advisor, which is a whole nother situation, because then I have to talk in person to someone about how bad I am at this whole thing. And they're going to judge me. They're going to do all these things. How do I do this at a pace and at a way that makes me feel like, one, I'm mastering it, and two, I'm going to be good at it on the other end? When you think about solutions, I would argue that that might be one of the last things you start to fill in there, guys. Start to let some of this other stuff make its way in there. Start to let that customer drive you. Audio's product roadmap, when someday I want to see this audio, because I can't even imagine what you've got planned for the next series of lines. But the best product roadmaps are ones that just keep iterating on what they need next. So right now, I'll give you an example from our team. We're building out a pretty comprehensive network of first customers for startups. So we know that our entrepreneurs within the Startup Collaborative work with 50 to 60 a month, say that finding first customers, not the customers to do discovery with, but the ones who are actually going to sign up for beta, is really hard. It's really hard. And then on the other side of the market, we have all these corporations in Omaha that say, startups, it's so great. We need more. So we're building effectively a matchmaking tool to say, you say you want to help startups. You say you need a first customer. Jameson, how do I get you with First National Bank of Omaha, who wants to see you thrive, who wants to partner with you, who wants to get you the scale that you're achieving? How do we do that better? We saw that in our portfolio. Kaufman said that was the #1 challenge facing an aspiring entrepreneur right now. We also know that some of their other challenges are finding capital, finding advisors, finding peers. Who are my allies? So while we're hyper focused on this first customer piece on our roadmap right now, we have these other pieces that are less of an issue for our entrepreneur, but they're coming soon. The final piece of all this is your cost structure. And this is the stuff that you guys just start to need to get your hands around. If you're not familiar with Google Sheets, it taught me to do math quite well. I will tell you, think about what this is going to cost you. Think about what you think you can charge for it, and then just run those really simple math equations out. I mean, we're talking about addition and subtraction style equations in here, maybe a couple multiplications, and we will be happy to share some of this content with you. But it's really important once you've started to assemble the rest of this to think and take a step back and say, like Adia said earlier, 75K is my number. That's the number that I feel really good at. And I know that I sound like a dirty capitalist, y'all, but you need to eat and you need to enjoy this company. And God willing, you create a little wealth off of this company that you can share with people that matter to you, whomever that might be. So put those numbers down and think about, okay, in the first 3 months, I've got to have this many customers to make this much money. And for me to hit my 75,000, I need to sell this many pieces a year. So just get some of that number in your head so you have a goalpost that you're working toward on a 30-day, a 60-day, and a 90-day basis. And that helps get you a win in your sales. So this is the easiest way to construct a business plan. I can't tell you enough. Do not overthink it. Don't sort of punt it, but you're at the iterative phases of your company right now, and it's a good time to just pencil things in, talk to the market. Erase what proved to be untrue, put it back in pen when you find it out. We would honestly love to work with you all. We have templates and supporting content that helps you fill in all of these buckets on your business plan. And if that would be helpful in sort of one-on-one consults, we would be really excited to do that with you guys. Let's open it up for any questions that you have. Okay, we'll give you, oh, go for it.
No, I said no questions.
Oh, guess what, Mariana? We are free. We're a nonprofit organization, and we're proud of that, truthfully. We're aligned to you. Our goal is to see your business growth. Our economy is in the crapper right now in a weird way, and in our hearts, we know this to be true, but through the data, it would empirically show that you are the ones that are going to turn this economy around, and you are the ones that are going to create companies that literally rebound this economy. So it's our pleasure to work with you guys because that is very important. Okay, where do I sign, Mariana? You're so wonderful. So Cameron's really, he's like the guy that gets everybody in. There's a little bit of work. We're very, very focused on being objective in your business growth and making sure that you get those foundations strong so you can keep building. But that work's all making sure you're talking to your customers. So it's what you should be doing and what you enjoy doing and why you exist to create this business anyway. So we'll get you that information as we wrap on this call. We promise there's no fake work. I hate fake work. We don't do that. Okay, well, thank you guys for spending the morning with us. Thanks for letting us peekaboo into your businesses and where you're going. I've always believed this, that you're doing something really important, and you don't have that confidence right now, please know that you're doing something incredibly important right now. And our country is at an inflection point that entrepreneurs will save. Okay, well, thank you guys. Audio, please tell Cameron hi and that we really miss him. And like give him an obnoxiously big hug for me. To like overdo the hug, overdo it. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you so much, everyone. Feel free to
Thanks so much, everybody.
Make sure you support each other too. If you've got Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, make sure you're reaching out, following each other, because at the end of the day, if you're supporting the industry that you're in, you're doing a great job. So make sure you're following those tags that were previously dropped into the chat. Any other questions that you have, you can reach out to us by visiting our website, thestartupcollaborative.com. We're also on social media. You can find us there. DM us with any questions that you have. Other than that, we'll have some materials that we'll send over from Denise. So we'll kind of make a good conglomerate of that, and then we'll send it all over so you have some first steps to take from here. And there's my dog. I told you, working from home. It's bound to happen. So she is ready for a walk. But thank you again, everyone. It's been great.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Thank you so much.